One of those days, everybody. All right, here we go. We'll start over again. 46 seconds in. It is it's Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance on this day that honors 9/11. It honors not only the victims, the lives lost on that day, but also the heroes that day. And many people at first, thought 9/11, I can't even think about it because it is a day of tragedy. It's a day of sadness. But then you look at the stories, you look at the heroes that came out of that day as well. It is a day of just emotions. If you went through that in terms of just being an American, being in front of a television set at about 9 o'clock in the morning or so, and seeing the plane strike the Twin Towers, just an awful, awful scene. But again, so many heroes, so many people that helped others to safety and then lost their own lives, or everybody that they were working with were saved. I remember the country coming together after that. So today, a very important day in the history of our country, much like I kind of compare it to Pearl Harbor Day. And that is the day that, as we get further and further away from December 7th, 1941, it seems every year it's less and less remembered, which is a terrible thing. So I always try and bring that up. So hopefully you are having a great day today as we remember what went on 23 years ago on a day very similar. Nancy, thank you. Yeah, we fixed. Jordan saved me. Figured that out. Couldn't hear me at the beginning. Good morning, Nancy. I hope you're having a good day. And if anybody joins us, just share your thoughts. Where were you on 9/11 23 years ago? What were you doing? What was your day like? How did your world change that day, which was just unimaginable, but it did happen. And as I said, a lot of people, heroes. And before we keep going on with our topic today, want to thank Valley Converting, our sponsor for the 9-Minute Phill-Up. I want to thank Mike Biasi and his crew in the gem city of T-Town, Toronto, Ohio, for all the work they do with recycling, helping the environment, and giving you an opportunity. Craig checks in, says good morning. And while we say good morning to him, we are also going to say good morning to everyone at
Every piece of paper has a story. What if that story didn't end when you were done with it?
At Valley Converting, we turn your old paper products into recycled paperboard, continuing the story.
Locally owned and operated in Toronto, Ohio, bringing your paper to Valley Converting isn't just about recycling.
It's about supporting a cleaner, greener future for all of us.
We are here 5 days a week to help you make some green by going green.
And remember,
recycle for your future.
And we are back, and good morning, everybody, on this Wednesday, and it is 9/11, as we mentioned, Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance Day. And I can my own story from that day. I actually had that day off. I was working, and I had been working, and I had the day off. I can't remember exactly why, or maybe I was going to work later in the day here at WTOV9. But I remember sitting in the living room, my son Ian, who he was a baby. He was literally about, I'm going to say a year. 20. He was 2000. So he would have been 24. So he'd been about a year and a half, maybe, give or take. So I remember sitting with him, and it was a beautiful day, beautiful, beautiful day, exactly like today. And we have producer extraordinaire Jordan joining us, and now Jordan, obviously, you were very, very, very young. You were basically a toddler yourself.
I was almost 3.
Okay,
so I don't remember it.
What stories have you heard from parents and family members? Because everybody has a story of where they were, how they felt.
My mom was at work. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was actually doing jury duty.
Okay.
So my mom said, like, me I think both me and my brother were in daycare because my brother was
Mhm.
a baby.
Yeah.
Um, and, like, as soon as it happened, like, they obviously, like, left work, he was able to, like, leave jury duty, they
Mhm.
picked Michael and I up
Mhm.
from daycare, um, because the Shanksville plane
Yeah.
was, like, only, like, not even I don't even think it was, like, an hour from where we lived, so they didn't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
where what was gonna happen, so we all,
Yeah.
like, went home and, like, we just watched the news the rest of the day.
Yeah. And it's one of those things with the Shanksville plane, the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so focused on New York because it's the twin towers and the buildings came down, but Shanksville, Flight 93, and then the flight that hit the Pentagon. It was a day that you still just I can't. It's hard to believe now, and it's 23 years later since that happened. Brian, yes. Good morning on this somber day. Craig, I was watching TV with a 10-inch TV with an antenna when the first tower was hit. Let's see. James checks in. Oh, buddy, I was in ninth grade when it happened. So, ninth grade, I would imagine, schools, because that word gets around pretty quick. Somebody's got a TV on somewhere, or somebody's going to get a phone call. So I would imagine, school students. I remember just, basically picking up, I was holding Ian. I think I put him down, and basically I stood there and I watched the twin towers go down, and I just started to cry, just doubled
Yeah.
over, and it's tough. But like I said, lots of heroes, lots of people. In the thing for me, you mentioned Shanksville playing because that was close to where you grew up.
Mhm.
But for me, growing up in New England, 2 hours from New York City, 2 hours from Boston, and two of the flights were out of Boston. I remember my mom lived on Cape Cod at the time. Now, I mean, the chances of her flying that day to go and see my brother who lived in California, but one of the flights was supposed to go to California. So I'm on the phone trying to call my mom to see if she's okay, if for some reason she got on a plane or whatever it was. And she was no. So I got in touch with her, but she didn't. But she didn't go. But I had a lot of. Then it was a lot of worry about people that I knew
Yeah.
that may or may not have been working in the city that day. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. Or if they were working in the city, none of my people, in terms of people that I knew, um, had any loss of life. But everybody was, scarred by that. I think a little bit as you went through it. So it's one of those things. Worst day in America? It's up there. It is up there. Civil War is pretty bad. Even and then and then December 7th and everything else. So I mean, it's hard to. Those are all bad days. All bad days. But again,
Yeah, it's so weird though because my parents always start like, they every time they tell the story, they
Mhm.
always start it with them saying it was, like, such a nice day
Oh, it was
outside, like,
unbelievable.
every time.
If you went outside right now, you'd look up in the sky. And, oh, it's crystal clear.
Yeah, that's every
And it and
time
it and
they
it and
say
it
that.
was. And then the thing was when they started to ground all the planes, it was kind of eerie because you didn't see a plane anywhere. So it was it was just a day. And then the thing that I remember, and it was here at the station. I'm sure it was at stations across the country. People started to figure out what they needed to donate. How can we get those donations to New York City? How can we get them to the Pentagon? How can we make this happen? And I remember we went into action, and we loaded up a truck. People made donations. Then the truck was driven. Then the truck couldn't get all the way to New York City. Had to stop, but they unloaded and everything else. And it was just everybody was willing to pitch in. People were giving blood, uh, all of that stuff. So it was just absolutely crazy. My cousin had to run 30 blocks to get away from it. Couldn't even imagine. No, can't imagine. Can't imagine it. Let's see. Bothered me the most is when people started jumping from the tower. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember at first seeing that and going, wait a minute, what was that?
Yeah.
And then, you realize, sorry, everybody. Data's world stopped turning. Yep, it did. It did. So yeah. But I'm going to go back to this because it keeps getting me back on track. The heroes. And I really think, and we don't talk too much politics, and I don't think it really mattered at the time, but President Bush, he really stepped up, went down to ground zero, talked to all the firemen, talked to all the policemen, talked to family, anybody he could find. He was down there for everybody, and it showed strength. And then the World Series, the Yankees were in the World Series with Arizona, I believe, and when he went out and threw the first pitch, it was pretty incredible. I mean, it was, and the thing is, the story's told that he was warming up in the underground, or behind inside the stadium. He was warming up, and Derek Jeter, the captain of the Yankees, came up to him and was like, "Don't bounce it. Better not bounce it. You'll get booed." And not to put more pressure on him. And he not only went out there, he went out there and trying to think what jacket, the FBI jacket on. I remember it was a blue windbreaker, but you could tell that there was something underneath it, like a vest. But he walked out, threw a strike. Place went nuts. Why do I do this to myself?
It's okay.
Good morning, Bobby. We are talking about remembrances of 9/11, how it's changed. Not how it's changed. We're just going back to that day. And I'll tell you what, 60 Minutes did a big story. I think it was from a couple of years ago, and it was on this weekend, and it was really good, really emotional. Any of those documentaries, you can't get through them. But it's like I said, it's a somber day. It's a sad day, but at the same time, the heroes, the stories that you hear, and now the firefighters in New York City. One of the parts of the story was about how there's 60 children of former FDNY firefighters that went through all the training, all the testing. And they said, I had no idea it was this big. I mean, New York City's huge, so a lot of people are going to take the test to become a firefighter. But they said it's like 12,000 people take the test, and they only take, but they all passed, and they took it. And now one of the guys, and like I said, this was only a few years ago, so I imagine he's still in the same firehouse. But one of the guys, his dad served in that house, so when he comes in, there's pictures of his dad that he sees every day. And he says, there's just so many memories here. So to be here now is super special. And then you hear the stories about these two gentlemen. I can't remember their names, but their dad got everybody out of the one tower, was safe, and then heard the distress call from another part of his crew at the other tower, and basically went back in and knew he wasn't coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's just, and then the people that volunteered to go into the military and everything else, it was something else, and the way people reacted to it. So yes, indeed, Bobby. So it's one of those days that still fresh, but one of those days that we need to learn from. Things have changed, now, people get in a debate whether it's not an illusion, but are we really as safe as we think we are because of the checkpoints at the airport and bringing, liquids on and think. But I do think the one thing that this has done for everybody, it's made everybody a little more aware. Kind of like, okay, I'm at the airport. What am I doing? I'm looking around, keeping track of what's going on, and hopefully in your everyday life as well. This is kind of neat. And I always get, and she lives in New Bern, North Carolina. I've mentioned my mom living in New Bern, North Carolina, a number of times. And one of the things that she's moved into a different place, but the first place, or one of the first places that she lived down there, they had a fire department. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know how they got it, but they were able to obtain a steel girder from the World Trade Center. So you drive by this teeny tiny little firehouse. I think they've got one truck. I don't know how many guys. It might be 5 guys for all I know, but they have this display right outside the front of the firehouse, and I just always drive by it. Can't help but look at it and think about it. And at first I was like, why is that there? But I would imagine those guys, a lot of guys, got in a car, drove to New York, got in a car, drove to Washington, D.C. Especially firefighters and police officers are like, okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to help? So today is 9/11, an emotional day. And one of those days where you're thankful to be alive, and you remember those that lost their lives that day. You remember the heroes that lost their lives that day. So again, hopefully you remember the day in your own way, and you can, remember what happened and move on, but at the same time, never forget. And of course, as I mentioned before, and I think Jordan mentioned it, the Shanksville flight for people in Western Pennsylvania. That's what now. I've never been to the memorial in Shanksville. You've been there. What is that like?
Well, the first time I went there, I think I was like 9, and it was just like a fence, and like people would, put wreaths that like put anything and anything you could imagine there, flowers. They would bring like club shirts, like just hanging on this fence, and there was like this little like shed that like had like somebody was in there, and they talked about it and had all the pictures of the people from the plane. And now it's unreal.
Yeah.
I remember we took a trip there in high school.
Okay.
And they had pretty much everything that there is now. Like they had the museum, they had like where you walk to like where I don't think you walk exactly like where the plane crashed, but they have like a little like walkway that you can see where it did. Like you're still far away.
Yeah.
And then they have that like big tower now.
Yeah.
And that wasn't there when I was there. So it's been a while, but I've always wanted to go back there.
Yeah. I would like to go there. It's
like what they have done there is amazing.
Impressive.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you have a place, now this show emanates from the Ohio Valley, Steubenville, Wheeling. So if you're in the area and you have a chance to go to Shanksville, and you want to learn about a little bit more about 9/11, about Flight 93, about what went on in that flight and everything, it would be a great thing to do. Now, one of the things that I had an opportunity to do, a lot of it was by chance, was the fact that the Penguins played in the playoffs against the New York Rangers, or the Giants or Jets. I can't remember which. They were playing against the Steelers, and the Steelers were traveling there. So in my job as a sportscaster in Pittsburgh at WPXI, myself and Richard Kenyon, my photographer, we were there, and we both were kind of like, we need to go down to see Ground Zero. And we were there when they were still taking truckloads of earth out. And, like I said, I said earlier, I grew up 2 hours to Boston, 2 hours to New York City. So I'd been in that spot where the World Trade Center a number of times with my family, especially with my mom. And, but to see it empty as a crater, and people taking, truckloads of material out while people were still looking for remains, and how big it is amazing. Like you don't realize. I mean, it looks big. If you've never been to New York City, you see the skyscraper, it looks huge. But to be up close, it's overwhelming how big it is, especially how deep it is. And that was, you want to talk about, you hear pin drop.
Yeah.
Very quiet, very, very quiet. So I compare it to, I was doing the play-by-play for Central Connecticut State University basketball team, and they were on a road trip, and they went to the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. And I remember the coach said, getting off the bus, fellas, this is a, we can't, you got to be very serious. This isn't a place to be joking around. People are here to see, family members and remember. And you could hear a pin drop, and those guys did that. And then in New York City, it's the same thing. And then we went back a little bit later, maybe a year or two, for another playoff thing. And they had basically got started to get things set up so you could go and see different things, and they had displays. But we saw a police officer, he saw the news car, and he was asking us where we were from. And we said Pittsburgh. And he said, you didn't cover in the game? We said, yeah. And he said, well, he goes, unfortunately, guys, if you're here to come down, we said, we just drove down because we want to see, and, just, see it. And he said, well, if you want to go through, you have to sign up. And I guess it was months long waiting list to be able to do that. But so that was in its own strange way, a special thing to be able to see what had happened and really let it, it's visceral. It's something it's not just a story on TV. It's not just a voice. It's literally, I'm seeing this at a place where I stood as a kid going, wow, those are amazing. Look at how tall the World Trade Center is.
Yeah.
So, and now it's weird. If I see a movie it's like, ugh, or a plane you fly over. The first time I flew over the city. Let's see. Got a DVD about Flight 93. I watched it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, there's a movie.
Yeah.
I think it's called United 93.
Okay.
I can't. I think my dad has maybe watched it, but I can't. Like, I just can't bring myself to watch it.
It's tough. It's tough. But I'll tell you what, if you want to learn about there's some great documentaries. They're tough to watch. They're tough to watch. And you'll see things that you just are horrific. But it's a way to learn about what happened. And you do. There's so many heroes from that day. And unfortunately, so many victims. All right, Jordan. It's a Wednesday. Some people like to call it hump day. Well, we are working our way over hump day because this is a tough one, but it's one of those ones again. When you think back on it, and it changed the world. It changed the world. It changed how we do a lot of things. It changed our country, other countries. It changed how everybody goes about their business. But let's not forget all those victims and all of those heroes that were. And it's the day of remembrance, day of service and remembrance, and Patriot Day. And man, a lot of patriots, a lot of heroes. And let's not remember the victims and the victims' families, because that's got to be a rough one. Can't imagine. All right, 2 rules. Have fun and always try your best. Even on a day like today, we get through this and we, we're somber, but at the same time, we can find a spot in the day to have fun and try our best. So I can't thank you enough for checking us out. Jordan, can't thank you enough for sharing your thoughts. And that's great. I didn't know about some of the stuff about Shanksville and what they've done out there. So thank you for that. So I greatly appreciate it. And I greatly appreciate everybody and their comments. Bobby, come on, everybody, hit the thumbs up for Bill's 10-minute Phill-Up. It's actually a half-hour Phill-Up. Yeah, it's 20 minutes. So, I really appreciate it. All right. Anyways, that's where we're gonna end it for today. Everybody have a great day. Greatly appreciate it. And good morning. Good morning, Skylar. Good morning, Skylar Shabansky. Be looking for, hey, make sure she's always having fun and trying her best. Make sure you check her out on WTOV9. She's always ready to go with a big story and had a big story. If you need to know about your election stuff, if you're in Ohio, if you need to get registered, need to vote, Skylar did a story last night. You can check it out on WTOV9. You can find out what you need to do to vote. Always important. So, Skylar, thank you for checking in. Greatly appreciate that. Greatly appreciate everybody. Greatly appreciate Valley Converting. Thank you, everyone. And good morning, Teresa. Good morning. Unfortunately, we're wrapping things up, but hopefully, everybody can join us tomorrow. We'll have some fun. And again, can't thank you enough. And again, to all the heroes, to all the victims of 9/11, and the families of 9/11, people that have been lost, and anybody affected in any way. Just thoughts and prayers, and just can't thank you enough for joining us. So we will talk to you soon. And again, it is the 9-Minute Phill-Up. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And again, just to remind you, those 2 rules: have fun and always try your best.